Hello everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on the abundance earrings, and these earrings are using some of the beads from my most recent collaboration with Eureka Crystal Beads called the Autumn in New York collection. And if you've been following me, you know how special this collection is to me because it was inspired by my childhood growing up in New York City and going to Central Park. So we've already done the bracelet. So this is the Scattered Leaves bracelet, and this was so much fun. I hope you enjoyed making this, or if you are making it, I think you'll have a blast making it. It's a little challenging, but that's okay. So these are the earrings, and they're easier than the bracelet. So here, I just want to show you a picture of how they look on the ear because they look big and heavy. They're so light and lacy. So even though they're big, I think they're really pretty on the ear. I just love them either with your hair down, up. And if you notice, they don't pull down on my earlobe because I cannot wear anything that pulls down on my earlobes. I can't even wear something that I feel on my ears. So don't worry about that. Have fun making these. I'm going to clear this off. We'll get a materials list going and we'll get started. Let's get a materials list going. So you need some Paisley Duos, some Super Duos, 11-0 Toho, 11-0 Miyuki, 15-0 Miyuki, 3mm pearl. You need a 4mm bicone, just one, one color. Some 8mm chatons, these beautiful crystal drops, and a 4mm pearl, a pair of ear wires, some 8-pound Fireline. I'm using black satin, and I have a needle case here with 10, 11, and 12 beading needles. And as usual, I forgot the stop bead, so I'll put that there. Everything in this earring is in the Autumn in New York collection, so if you have it, you have everything to make them. If not, they're beads that we have in our stash pretty much. All right, I will list everything in the description box below the video: sizes, shapes, colors. I'll give you links to where you can purchase if you need to. All right, so I'm going to clear this off and we'll get started. So thread your needle with about 4 feet of thread, maybe a little less, but on a stop bead, about 18 inches from the end. So you'll have 18 inches after your stop bead and a little more with where your needle is threaded. All right, because we'll use both ends. So we're going to pick up and drop down to the stop bead, a Super Duo, an 11-0, Super Duo 11-0, Super Duo 11-0, Super Duo 11-0. So I have 4 Super Duos on with 4 11-0s in between. I'm going to sew these into a circle, so I'm just going to sew through the first bead after my stop bead, like that, and then just reinforce. I'm going to pull in a little here. Okay. Then you just want to come around again, reinforce, come out. You're coming out where you started from, advance through the 11-0, through the next Super Duo, bottom hole, and then through the top hole of that Super Duo. Okay, so I'm exiting the top hole of a Super Duo here. I'm going to pick up a Paisley Duo. Notice how I'm putting it on. The 11-0 Toho and a Paisley Duo. Just going to sew through the top hole of the next Super Duo. This is what it looks like. I'm going to do that again. Paisley Duo, 11-0 Toho, Paisley Duo. I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next Super Duo. It's going to twist around on you a little bit, but there you go. That's what it looks like. So you can do that 2 more times, and then we'll continue. Here's my last Paisley Duo, 11-0 Paisley Duo. I'm going to sew through the top hole of the Super Duo and right through the bottom hole of the next Paisley Duo. I'm going to advance my needle through the next 11-0 Paisley Duo, Super Duo, and the next Paisley Duo. Like that. Now I'm exiting the bottom hole of the Paisley Duo. I'm just going to sew through the top hole. So if you notice, my thread is exiting the top hole of this Paisley Duo here, where they're like right next to each other there. Next step, I'm going to pick up a pearl, 3mm pearl, exiting here. I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next Paisley Duo. And then I'm going to pick up 3 of my Toho 11-0s and sew through the next one. So if you notice, when you're putting the pearl on, you're always above a super duo, and when you're putting these three 11-O's on, it's above here. And you're just going to repeat that all the way around. So pearl, and then 3 11-O's. Oh, there's my little kitty again. Yeah, he wants to come in. All right, so you're just going to continue that all the way around. Okay, coming down to my last 3 Toho 11-O's, I'm going to sew through the paisley duo, the next pearl, the next paisley duo, and the first 11-O Toho of those 3. Just like that. So far, I'm exiting the 11-O past one of the paisley duos. So this is my outside thread that I was working with. I'm going to put that aside, keep your needle on it, thread another needle, and with the tail thread. So take your stop bead off, obviously, and thread your needle. So we're on the other side now. That's where my thread is coming out, right there. So I'm exiting the bottom hole of a super duo. I'm going to sew through the top hole, the paisley duo, if you can get them at the same time. And then the Toho 11-O that's right in the middle there. You might have to bend your piece over a little bit to get to it, but you shouldn't have a problem. So now this is where I have my thread coming out, this Toho 11-O right here. Okay, so we're exiting the Toho 11-O in between the paisley duos. I'm going to pick up 5 of my Miyuki 11-O's, and I'm going to just pop over to the next one. So through that next Toho 11-O in between the paisley duos, like that. And then you're just going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, coming down to the last group of 5, exiting here. I'm going to sew through this one, like that. So this is what it looks like so far. And then I'm going to advance through those first 5 Miyuki 11-O's. Okay, so I'm exiting these 5 11-O's. I'm going to pick up one of the Toho 11-O's. I'm going to sew through the next 5. So we're just building a little cup for our stone. Do that again. And then just do that 2 more times. Come down to my last Toho 11-O I'm going to place right here. So exiting here, I'm going to sew through these 5. Like that. And then I'm going to advance through the Toho and 3 of the 5 Miyukis. Just like that. Here's our little pretty purpley amethyst stone. We're going to just lay that in there. It's not going to stay at the moment. We're exiting the number 3 11-O right here of the 5. I'm going to pick up 4 15-O's, and I'm going to sew through 1, 2, 3, number 3 11-O of that next group of 5. So skipping everything else, just sewing through that one bead. And don't worry about if your stone pops up. Like that. Let's do that again. 4 11-O's. 4 15-O's. Sitting here. Just going to hop over to number 3 of the 5. Use your thumb to poke it out. Like that. And just do that a couple more times. Then we'll continue. And on my last 4 15-O's, so exiting that 11-O in there, just going through the original one right here. So that's number 3 bead of the next 5 to get the last group on. And this is what it looks like so far. I'm going to reinforce. So I'm exiting the 11-O. I'm just going to sew through all the 15-O's, and I'm going to skip. Let me get my needle on there. I'm going to skip the 11-O's. Now you can sew through the 11-O's as well. It just depends on how it feels and how it's looking. If you skip that 11-O right there, and you just go through all the 15-O's you put on, I think it gives it a nice, like, sharper edge here. But it's up to you. So just reinforce. Don't cut your thread off because we're still using it, and then we'll continue. Come all the way around, and I've reinforced all my 15-O's. So I'm exiting a group of 15-O's. Now I'm going to sew through this 11-O, and these two right here, so here to here, and this is where I want you to exit. Okay, so here we are, we're exiting these two 11-0s right next to the Toho 11-0 there. So I'm going to pick up a Toho 11-0, the 15-0 Miyuki, and a Toho 11-0. Exiting here, I'm just going to sew down through this whole line actually of 11-0s right here, but I'm just going to start with the first three just to show you that's how it's going to go on. And then you want to do the last two here, so all 5 of those, and you're just going to repeat this Toho 11-0 Miyuki 15-0 Toho 11-0, exiting here. Just going to go down this next group like that until I'm exiting. It's 11-0s right there, and you're just going to do that a couple more times, and then you can actually sew in this thread because the bezel will be done. So my bezel is done, and I'm sewn in my thread. I just sewed around the beads and just did a couple of half-hitch knots, and that thread is done. So now I'm coming back to my other thread, which is exiting one of the Toho 11-0s of the group of 3, the first one. All I'm going to do is skip this one and sew just with nothing on my needle, just the thread, no beads. I'm just going to sew through that second one, and that's just going to pop that bead, the center bead, up. So we're going to do that all the way around. So I'll do it one more time with you. Sewing through all the beads till I'm exiting the Toho 11-0, that first one. I'm going to skip the next one and sew through the following one. And what you want to do here is make sure you take your needle and pop that up so you have a little picot going on there. All right, so just do that 2 more times, and then we'll start the draw. To my last little group here, exiting here, I'm going to skip this one, so through the next one. I'm going to go on through the purl and make sure that you pop this up like that through the next paisley duo, my needle in there, up the next Toho 11-0. Let's see if we can get it like that, and you want to come out the middle bead of one of those groups of 3. This is what we have so far. Okay, so you're exiting that middle Toho 11-0 of a group of 3. You're going to pick up 2 Miyuki 11-0s, a Toho 11-0. You're going to repeat that: 2 Miyukis, a Toho, 2 Miyukis, a Toho, and 2 Miyukis. So you have 4 groups of 2 Miyukis and 3 of your Toho 11-0 seed beads. So through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. And that's going to give me this little sort of circular group of beads. I'm going to come around. I'm exiting here. I'm just going to sew through the 2 Miyukis, and I'm going to skip the Toho. So it's through the 2 Miyukis. I'm going to skip the Toho and sew through the 2 Miyukis. I'm going to make sure that Toho pops out like that. Just going to do that all the way around. Exiting the Miyukis, skip the Toho, sew through the Miyukis. Make sure it pops up. This gives a nice, like, it makes a nice angle. So skipping the next 2, the next Toho, sewing through the next 2 Miyukis. Like that. Making sure that guy pops out like that. I'm going to skip the original one I came out of. I'm going to sew through the next 2 Miyukis. Like that, and this Toho right here, the Toho 11-0. And when I pull, say I have this nice little squared off, sort of actually diamond shape. We're exiting the bottom hole of this Toho 11-0, the kind of little corner there. I'm going to pick up my 4mm pearl, and I'm going to, so exiting my thread is coming out of here, I'm going to sew through the top hole of the bead on the other side to attach the pearl. So bottom hole from this one to the top hole. That's what we have so far. Pick up 3 of my Miyuki 11-0s, exiting here. I'm going to sew through the other side of the bead I'm exiting, just to put that little edge on there. And then I'm going to sew down through these two and then the bottom one as well. So headed towards that bottom bead. Just make sure you don't get caught. So here I've got those 3 on. I've come through these 2 and then this bottom toho, and we have sort of that little embellishment on the side. We'll get to this side on the way back. I'm exiting here. I'm picking up 3 of my toho 11-ohs and sewing through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. Now I'm going to sew through the side bead and the bottom bead, and this is what I have. Okay, next up I'm picking up an 11-oh, that beautiful Elite Eureka Crystal drop. It's gorgeous. An 11-oh, 4mm bicone, 3 11-ohs. Then I'm going to skip those 3 11-ohs and sew up through the bicone, the 11-oh, the drop, and the 11-oh above the drop. Make sure you pull it so there's no thread showing and that the picot makes a picot on the bottom there. So I'm just pulling it up a little bit there. There we go. All right, now I'm just going to sew through the other side of the bead, the bottom toho 11-oh right there. So you'll have a thread on either side of that toho 11-oh, and that's just going to secure it a little bit like that. We're going to put the little embellishment on the other side of the pearl. So I'm exiting the bottom bead of those tohos. I'm going up through the side bead and then the top bead. Then I'm just going to advance through the next 2 11-ohs and the toho right there. This is what I have. I've picked up 3 Miyuki 11-ohs. I'm going to sew through the other side of that toho to put that little embellishment on the side, and then I'm just going to sew my threads in. You can sew around the piece if you like. Just a note before we put the ear wire on. When you're finished with your drop, you can come around again and reinforce everything if you think you need to. So see how it's hanging, and then you can come, do your side piece and come around. Now, if you have an extra long piece of thread and you don't want to put on a separate thread for your ear wire, which I suggest you do, just in case it breaks, you never know, you can actually work your way around. You have to maneuver a little bit. You'll have to move your pieces, beads a little bit to get through, but you have plenty of room to get through. It's just the angles are tough. So add a thread. I would suggest you add a thread and just sew through the top hole of the group of 3 that's right above where your drop is. And you're going to pick up a 15-oh, the 3mm pearl, and you're going to sew through the wire right there, the ear wire. You're going to pick up a 3mm pearl and a 15-oh and just sew through the other side of the bead you are exiting. And always make sure that that ear wire is in between the 2 pearls. You don't want it on the string, on the thread. You want to make sure that the pearls are holding it on. It just stays much better. It's, it's stronger. And then you're just going to reinforce. And when you do, just make sure that that ear wire is staying in between the pearls. So just push it in there. So I'm just coming all the way around again. And then before I sew this thread in, I'm just going to make sure that as I said, that ear wire is right in between the pearls. So then just sew your thread in and then come back and we'll finish. Here are our earrings, and I put 3 out because I used 3 different color bicones, and I should have used the bicone the topaz bicone from the collection. That would have been gorgeous, but I didn't have it when I first made the sample, so I just had to use something from my stash. But these two are in the collection, and so is the topaz. So our earring is, I just think it's so pretty. Here's the bracelet. I wanted you to see the beautiful, this one, you know, with the ear wire from the collection. So this is the Tiara Cast ear wire, which leads me into being so sad about Tiara Cast. I'm so sorry that they're closing down, because they are my favorite findings. I just think they're beautiful. They're you know, they're such good quality, and they don't tarnish, they don't chip. They're just beautifully made. So I'm so sad. My heart goes out to you guys, and I hope that we can find a replacement that is just as beautiful and quality is just as good as Tiara Cast. All right, so here you go. I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.